it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom Hooper,
Present?
Jack Ketting, Sabrina Ford,
Here.
Lawrence Myers,
Here.
Jean Grine, and Richard Grimminger. And do you have a quorum?
Yes. And we have an agenda. Any additions needed? Call for approval.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Okay, we do have the minutes of the last meeting there. There is one correction for the record. Under old business, the CTM approval for 6 months at $220 a month instead of $220 that's in the minutes. Are there any other additions, corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second that?
We'll trade off.
Yes, we will.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in good shape. Financial report. We have you actually have a lodging tax year to date taken care of, and also there is a full fiscal year from 10/16 all the way through present attached to that. You can kind of see a flow of expenditures and income. And then the 930 amount at the bottom is our current balance.
Yes.
Okay.
So the current balance is 29,066, is that what you
Yeah,
said?
about 1672.
Yeah. Yeah, because the others just shows receipts.
Any clarifications, additions, or changes to the financial report? Need a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Tom, would you like me to mention the extra data that I put together? Would it be a part of the official financial report? Or would you rather have it later?
You can do that, we can do that
Okay.
later. Yes, it's kind of, there's some modifications of the flow. It doesn't really affect the financial report, just the accounting for it. Under old business, we have the TAC work session. I know I was able to attend that. We had some really good things come about as a result of that. Some new ideas. Sandra was able to present some of the advertising that she's done in a campaign. In a recent campaign, we have a copy in front of you. There's this wonderful Wear magazine from St. Louis that has a picture on the front of Jack and Mickey, and there's two other places throughout the magazine that have pictures and will drive people here. And this is in almost all of the lodging facilities and other businesses throughout St. Louis. And it has, we have the cover, and there's two other places inside where it's pretty much a full page. I went through time here, this is plans.
So, yeah, page 12 and 13,
12.
and also the page opposite the table of contents.
Yeah, 12, 13, and 7. And on 13, we share part of that page with some other the historic attractions within the region. But the nice thing is on page 12, we've got a nice picture.
So
That read.
the story on page 13 is actually what this article was going to be about. Things that you can do outside the St. Louis area. So it's Herman, St. Charles, St. Genevieve, Alton, Augusta, and Hannibal. So that was what their story was going to be, and they were going to pick one of these communities to be on the front cover. And the bonus is the fact that we also got a large photo on page 12. So we have basically 4 pages of coverage. Martin, I have an extra copy.
So,
Take it
Was
in
this
there.
part of the article, or did we pay for?
This
page
is
7?
technically paid advertorial, that full page, yeah.
yeah, the page 7.
Well, please.
This is an example of one of the things that we're going to try to do more of next year, and that is a page, whether it's a full page or a half page, depending on the format, where we have kind of a little story, or it looks like a story or an article, and then we have a lot of photos on there, as opposed to, I mean, it technically is an ad. It's called an advertorial. Or
But
paid
what we're
content.
able to be able to create the paid content, including the editorial portions of there and the stories that go with the spot ads. And if you structure it correctly, it looks like the whole thing is more of an article rather than an ad. And those are very effective. We don't have a copy here, but Sandra did a great one with a full page in the Webster
Kirkwood Times and South County Times.
And it's very attractive. And when we did a show in St. Louis recently, as soon as they saw we were from St. Genevieve, everybody commented on that.
Oh, that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that they were in those communities. They wanted to know, do you have an open store there? And it created a lot of conversation.
What was the other one called? Webster what?
Webster Kirkwood Times, so those are 2 neighborhoods, as you know, Webster, U-City neighborhood, and Kirkwood neighborhood in St. Louis. That's one newspaper, Webster/Kirkwood Times, and then the other is the South County Times, which of course are all those that are within easy reach of 55 South. We've also recently asked for similar information for this publication, which is called West News Magazine. This hits like Chesterfield, Wildwood, Baldwin, all those areas, 270 West. So,
Like inside restaurants and?
yeah, that kind of thing, yeah.
Like right outside there in those little racks, that's where you
Right.
find all these?
Right.
Do
I'll pass this one around, so.
Okay.
you have some cost information on some of these, like in this magazine,
Yeah, so,
the page 7?
yeah, so this one obviously was more expensive. This was about $2,200. The ones that we do in Webster Kirkwood Times are generally about $1,500.
But it's a full newspaper page.
And how long does it run in there? Like,
It's-
how many issues?
So Webster Kirkwood Times, people tend to hang on to it a little bit longer, but it is technically a weekly. But this is like a special insert that they do.
Yeah, they pull out inserts and people keep them on their coffee tables and.
Yeah,
And you know the circulation number?
I do. I have that.
You got that, exactly, got it somewhere in here too.
Webster Kirkwood is 78,000. Sit here, says it's just 2 of you. Tom already has this, I'll just give one of these to each of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And a lot of it came out of that work session was what is currently done and and upgrading the quality of the content. Also, antique and collectible news, they have one, in the recent one, we're actually the event of the month, and it's the town of the month, and featured ad that, and again, it was one of those, there was a partial paid and partial editorial that we were able to, that Santa was able to create and send to them, and they do the whole thing as a full page.
Cool.
And they've been very good in the past. We advertise with them, and anytime we've advertised, we've sent them some kind of story content, and they printed the whole thing.
Okay, so right now in the circulation of market distribution, do we have ads in all of these that are listed
Yes, during the year we do.
throughout the year?
And
Yeah.
those are, at this point in time, all that advertising is done through tourism,
Right,
Okay.
through
Yeah,
our
not
main.
through our.
Not through
not through what
us.
we're doing.
Right.
And this is what we're going to be investigating is can some of our advertising money, this is
Go
nice,
toward
Help
this
bolster
too.
help bolster that, because
Especially those full page.
and we have times of the year that, because
That's
of
another thing I was
the
gonna say.
hotels, motels being, and bed and breakfasts being full, certain times, we can't, because of the type of money we're using, advertise right during those times. So it's trying to find those times that we could use extra people in town.
Right.
And Sandra and I were talking today about possibly targeting our first group of advertising for that time around Valentine's Day. And trying to create some of this for that early spring. And, you know.
That's a great idea, because you got a lot of bed and breakfasts now, when,
Right,
and then
and-
these, being these, those
Right.
places got popping up all over town.
And right, we can also, feature some of the restaurants, feature some of the stores, people, get out and walk around the town, it's small enough no matter what the weather is.
Right.
So we can use that and try to create a campaign for that, and we have time if we're going to do that, for that February.
So
So
we're
it means that
thinking-
probably right after Christmas, we would need to actually get content to the publications.
Okay, so whenever you present that to these, are you gonna have the cost per magazine listed?
We'll still do that, that's the next step in that. And looking at, and also some of the magazines and newspapers are easier to work with when trying to do those more interesting type of ads, the advertorials or more creative in use of the space, so that it looks more like an article than an advertisement, which seems to get, people tend to look at those better.
Yeah.
We
They sure
also, we also tend to, any of them that have an online presence, and most of these in St. Louis market do have an online presence, we ask for our digital ad to be included on their website. Sometimes we have to pay a little extra for that, but then people can, if they're looking at it online, they can click the St. Genevieve ad and come right to our website, so.
And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we do include all the website, content. If we can get that with the advertising, that's kind of a bonus. And we'll make sure that they drive them to the website, which drives them to further, more clicks that they can get on, web pages and the different attractions, the greater opportunity that we have to convince them to come to visit. And it was a good creative work, thing to do, and then the TAC is now going to be meeting quarterly. And so, but that way they can do kind of more of a work session each time, rather than every month do little bits and pieces. And so, because we pay bills and things here, we need to continue doing our monthly.
I have a summary of it, just the notes from that. Martin and Paul, I know you got a copy of this the
Yeah.
other night. You don't want, do you want another one, Tom?
No, I'm good,
Okay.
I've got that. So this is an opportunity that we can fill in those holes, those times a year where our advertising is a little soft because we haven't had the attendance here, and we can maybe drive that. Because when we don't need to really advertise Jour de Fête, make sure it's on calendars and everything. And some of these things, because the bed and breakfast and hotels are full, we can't advertise there. We're also getting our calendar events out there in each of these advertising, and with, kind of list the things that are happening in the next 45 or 60 days in each of those ads. Try to, plug, all the different things that are going on.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Can we do that when you have a big event like that? Maybe you already do this, is people are here in town, as they're going through, is there information they get for the back
About the
trip?
next events?
Well,
About the next, about a list of
Well,
it.
we have that annual
Yeah, that's right.
list
I
of
think you
events.
probably did, yeah.
And,
Hello?
yeah.
We have that at the Welcome Center, and a lot of the shops
Yeah,
have
we have
them. I know we
it.
have some out
I'm sure
there.
Sabrina, you probably got them. at
Yeah,
Because
the-
they might be here on a business trip even, and they
Sure.
might see that
Right.
event, and they, my spouse might be interested in this or
Right.
whatever, and, take it home and have a
And that's what
discussion
we've been
about it.
doing, like on our Facebook page, is listing those events. Come stay with us at the Microtel for this event.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then we can also make sure that the hotels, motels get extra copies of some of these publications that we're advertising in. So if they're laying around, even if it's an old stale date, it has that ad in it. It would
Right.
just kind of reinforce.
That's what I was wondering, like, is there certain, that you're, like, okay, the Valentine thing, that's great, getting people here during the slow season or whatever, but, like, couldn't we, like, target, like, certain groups and things like that, too?
I've talked to the manager at the golf course about golf groups and
Yes.
putting together packages, and he's going to get a suggested, like a special rate for the golf side of it, and then we can make that available. We kind of have to send it across the board. I think it probably will lend itself most readily to your situation, to combine your room and a golf package.
Right.
And, so then.
I know one of our big golfing things is during the Jared event,
Of course.
because a lot of the
Yeah.
guys go play golf while the
Yeah.
women shop.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Two-day tournament.
There's an annual tournament,
Yeah.
it's the Jodafet Golf Tournament.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
But it's unlike mini golf tournaments, this is a two-day event.
right.
I thought you said mini golf.
So
That would be neat, I'll do that.
unlike other golf.
Yeah, you have 2 holes in the visitor center they show on the miniature golf tour.
But it promotes people staying over, because
Right.
they gotta be back the next day.
Yeah.
But see, we're already so full, so it's,
Then you're full.
yeah, it's terrible.
Right, so it's trying to also, and then.
We need events like that that aren't
and-
associated with Jordan.
Right.
And asking organizations to maybe create events that are on
Right.
dates that tend to be slower.
And the other thing about that is there's money involved. Instead of
Yeah.
getting like schlocky prizes that you get at the end of a golf tournament, they actually have prize money.
Any more discussion on the work session, or any old things that we've talked about before that need to be reintroduced?
Since it's old business, I did bring copies of a couple of things. I'll just pass these out. So this is like a packet, so you gotta pass a packet. Warrants.
This is the renewal for the CTM.
Yeah, this has, Sabrina, did you get one?
No.
Okay, so this has, on the top page, this has kind of our return on investment summary on the rack cards for the previous 6 months. And so you can see how they calculate that. I mean, this is really just a projection, but it says, based on a certain number of people picking up the brochures and a certain percentage of those people taking action on that, and how many might come to your destination as a result of that, and then what the typical spend is as a result of that. And then you come out to your, what they consider to be a projection of the return on investment. So, of course, these are just projections, but you had asked about that specifically, so I wanted to share that information. And then the other one shows, and this goes back to a previous contract, and Sabrina will remember this from when we first negotiated these, but it has the list of the locations on the 55 hotel corridor, Microtel obviously being one of those, and then on the other side, the major attractions in the St. Louis metro area. In addition to those two, we also have Scott Air Force Base, the St. Louis Visitor Center, and the Kansas City Visitor Center that we add on, that makes up our $220 per month on the CTM contract.
4% of however many pieces result in guests.
That's a typical.
And visits?
Yeah, a typical visitor response pattern. And that's just based on their research. And then you take the typical, what a person would typically spend. As I said, these are projections, but these are kind of their industry standards. Then the other thing that had been mentioned were, just for your records, the past copies of the outdoor advertising agreement for the billboard on 55 that we just approved in July. And then the other sheet I have here is the previous 6 months on the CTM brochure distribution. So here's another packet. I don't know that you're going to want all those, but
That's all right.
there it is.
You don't
Okay.
need them? Okay.
Okay. Megan needs it. And Tom, I know you have these too, but
Yeah, that's all good.
just at least so you have it all together.
Yeah, so we got these in case people are talking about.
Yep, and I'll leave this one. to Jeff, yes. So that, I guess under old business, those were some things that you had mentioned previously is kind of fleshing out your archives.
Right,
Yeah,
because,
that was-
yeah.
that was just, you had, well, we had the DSW signed, a copy, but we didn't have that for everyone at the time
Right.
we approved that, now we have that. And this is the early billing situation from last year, from March. on the-
Right, this
updated
is
on
the one that
CTM.
went through September 30th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we've been paying that on the CTM by the month. And we paid printing all at once, and then paid the distribution by the month.
Right.
And
So the
then-
most recent contract that was approved was the 6 months from October 1st through March, I guess.
March.
And then that's when we'll vote again if we're going to,
Hmm?
whenever that's up, because we
Yeah,
voted
then we'll
that,
have to, yeah, then we could decide, we'll have to reprint at that time, depending on how quickly they.
Yeah, because they've got about 6,000 left,
Yeah.
they noted at this time, we've got about 6,000 left in their warehouse. But when we had them printed, we also had some, that went to the visitor center for local distribution.
Yes. And we paid for those, just so you know, when we paid for that distribution, the extra copies we had made of that rack card, we paid for those out of the city tourism account, not the TTC. So really, TTC only paid for the portion that were used in the rack card distribution
Yeah,
program.
we bought, paid for the printing of the rat cards and the first, it was almost a year of distribution, wasn't it? Or the 6 months when the first bill that we had was for printing and I think 6 months of distribution. I can't remember
that would be
exactly
this
what it
one,
is.
right?
No, that's after that first initial.
Oh,
But
okay.
These are the by the month,
Okay,
after that.
after that.
'Cause
We got a meeting downstairs? I'm gonna try to get this. Community
I can
television?
go over it with you more later if you want, if you have like questions or anything.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. That is 6 months though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, it's the last Tuesday of the month. ain't it? Oh, yeah, next Tuesday.
No, it's not the last Tuesday, but it's the fourth.
That's what I said, I won't be. I can't make the meeting.
Any other old business or further discussion? Okay, new business. Expenditures and bills that need to be paid, do we have those?
So if you have an idea of, so we would have the $220 per month for the rack card distribution moving forward, and $330 per month on the search
Right.
engine marketing. If you had an idea, if you were going to maybe not meet November, December, if
Yeah.
you do want to meet, then we'll know how many months to approve.
Yeah, well, I think we need to just make sure we have a plan for the advertising, and the only thing would be to maybe find out when the deadlines for the publication.
February, okay.
For the February thing, and work backwards from that, we need to kind of have
So
a meeting.
probably you should plan on a December meeting.
We should have a meeting and then also a meeting with content.
Okay.
We've got to figure out the content size and shape of those ads.
Then-
And your print people you already have a number of them that are good, it's just a matter of, making those fit the publication.
Mhm.
And then
So-
deciding how much money we want to spend at that time, for that, and make sure we have our calendar events for the town up to date, so we know where to you know, where to put that.
Yeah, so then my suggestion would be that it sounds to me like you're talking about having a meeting in December. So we would only need to approve these monthly expenditures for November and December
Yeah.
at this time,
Yeah,
right?
I think so, I believe so. Then we could kind of probably do away with a November meeting and have a December meeting if everybody does their homework and we're ready to, you know, go forward with those ads.
What part of December are we talking about?
Well,
It's always the third Tuesday.
Third
Yeah, what's
Tuesday.
the date on that?
I'll get it. It would be, the Tuesday would be the 19th. Good week for you, right?
Busy.
Yes.
We hope.
We'll be home, we'll be back.
Yeah. Oh. There's all kinds of new ideas. Does that work for everyone then, Tuesday, December 19th? I mean, that would be the,
I think so. Yeah, for me, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't make it
I'm out of town the week
previous to that
before.
because that's the arrival date
December 19th.
back home.
And that is basically the reason for that meeting is to approve ads such as these.
Right, it's basically finalizing that plan and trying to pick out, by that time Sandra will have some
Quotes and things.
quotes for the certain size ads, when their deadlines are, and maybe some samples of previous ads. The Webster time, it disappeared, the
we
extra
had it at the
copy.
meeting
And somebody thought it was nice to take home, yeah.
last week on Tuesday, yeah.
So,
But
then we'll
this,
kind of,
I'm sorry, this doesn't come out of our budget though, does it?
no, that was not,
This one did
none
not.
of, that, no, we,
Yeah.
and this has all been, almost all of print advertising has, other than the rack cards, has not been done from our CTC budget.
But I'm only able to do so much of this, and what Tom is suggesting would be to ramp it up a little bit with this specific type, with the advertorial or,
Because most of that advertorial type things in advertising has been done specifically to promote the major events that we have here in town. My proposal is to have this advertising fit those gap spaces when we have, Valentine's Day, it's a great holiday. We have all the facilities here, but we need to bring some people.
Right, I agree
Is the
with that.
chocolate walk that weekend?
No, that's November 11th, I think.
well,
it
so
is.
Valentine's Day actually falls on a Wednesday this year.
Yeah,
So,
I,
I mean, you could go before or after technically for
I
Valentine's Day
think
that
they
way.
usually do, like a lot of people do the weekend
well,
before.
but the nice thing is we can do, just spend the Valentine's season and have, if there's events on both of those weekends, do plug the chocolate walk, plug anything else that happens to on that. And if, maybe beforehand, let the bed and breakfast and hotels know and know that someone might be offering discounts and things.
Okay, so whenever you come back in December, are you gonna have like a sample of what's gonna be ran?
Well, it might not be that exact sample, but because we might not have the content figured out by then, well, we can do this type of ad in this type of publication would be X dollars.
Right, with
About-
some quotes, dollar amounts, and the sizes.
And this is when we were able to add content to it. And this is an antique and collectible news, and it's not an expensive publication to publish, and they
They
have.
gave us town of the month and event of the month in that publication.
And that's, and the advertising space is very reasonable.
What is this one?
I think it was a third of a page is
Antique and
$195. And they
How
offer
much?
about $195 for a third of a page. And it's a monthly publication, and then they give it, they've given me more than a full page of editorial stuff.
And where do you find this at? I've never seen this before.
It's almost all the antique malls,
Antique
a lot of country-type shops.
Well, that's great.
That have them, and
'Cause that
they're
people
freebies
would-
that they pass out all over the place.
Those type of people would enjoy
Yeah.
our town.
Right, and we've gotten a lot of people, for our special events, we advertise in that. So it's trying to pick some things like that.
Yes,
We give it away at our Welcome Center and other, public places like that. It gets mailed to us by the publisher, so all the other Welcome Centers would also have copies of that.
So we're looking at possibly, if this works, as we see how it lays out, possibly doing 2 or 3 campaigns a year at times that are not filled by events that are.
Right, that we
a
already
little
have
more
a flood
popular.
of people coming here, let's
Right,
do it.
but it's also reinforcing them, and it's getting the name out
Yeah.
there, and them seeing it and familiarizing themselves with it, so they know that we're more than just Jour de Fête,
Yes.
or more than just Rural Heritage Days. So we're getting more information. And then one of the nice things is Sandra puts a little data together, and it looks like we're going, projection is we could have as much as $1,000 or so in head tax going forward on an annual basis with the Airbnbs from the last quarterly reports, and extrapolating those out, which is money that we haven't had before, because that's, something new. And of course, some of them that are smaller are only reporting quarterly, so we're not getting, it's dribbling in, and we don't really have a steady way to track it.
Would you like me to pass this
Yeah.
out? Okay. So this is really confidential and just, it's a projection tool. So this would be, for example,
Confidential, I can't.
Oh, we're in trouble.
Mayor, you can have one too.
Sure.
This would be for some of those, as Tom said, the smaller properties. And
Watch it.
so you can kind of see, now this would be assuming that they were sold out Friday and Saturday night every weekend of the year. This may or may not be the case. And so that's where the 104 room nights per year at 2%, because 2% of the lodging
Right.
amount. And that's their average rate that is published by them on the internet. They may not always sell the room at that rate, but that's their published rate. And so you can kind of get an idea of that. Like properties 2, 3, 4, and 5, if, those are probably more typical. A lot of the Airbnbs are just one room, or one you rent the whole facility when you do it. And so they tend to be about $250 per year if we were projecting that out. So this is just to give you an idea
Of the projection that increase in funds that we may be able to be available. So that it's nice to know that we can maybe do some more advertising and expand where we advertise.
So this is kind of a projection.
Right, and then some of that is kind of dribbling in now, and then we've had about, in the last 6 months, if the next 6 months are like that, we could see about $1,000 increase in head tax from this revenue source. Alone.
well,
And if the other bed and breakfast, there may be more nights and more bed and breakfasts opening, and those, they're in a constant state of flux. If somebody goes on vacation, they're not open for 2 weeks, that changes. But we just kind of, and you notice that most of our projections annually have been relatively slower, or not slow, but very slow increase. But the last year and a half or so, we've had these Airbnbs, they've helped bring that up a little bit.
yeah, they've kind of kept us, like a consistent baseline in there. And of course, one of them just opened this fall, and also another regular bed and breakfast just reopened this fall. And so that's replacing revenue that was temporarily lost for the last 2 years, I think. So this was just something that I put together because Tom had asked about it at the last meeting, so.
But it's nice to know that we've got some growth there. And at any time, if you see a publication or get an advertising idea, please, bring it to my attention or to Sandra's as we're going forward with putting this, because I think this is a place that we haven't participated in with TTC in a number of years, and maybe time for us to do this. A lot of it is making sure that we have that website on there, that branding, which they see that and then they go to the website, and the website's all updated, and so that will keep people looking at us more and more. it's another tool in the arsenal.
So do you want to do your expenditures approval on the 220 and the 330 for November and December at this time?
Is there a motion to pay the CMT and the Med Media for the next 2 billing cycles?
That motion.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we have. Is there any other business? Any comments from the mayor?
May I address the board?
Certainly.
As you all know, and I don't know if you guys can do this or you're willing to do this, but you know, we're refurbishing the sign down here, and we are putting new graphics on the top of it, and the bottom of it is Jordan Fett, and they're paying for all their new graphics because it's, you know, it's advertising for them. And the top of the sign says, "Welcome to Historic St. Genevieve." It'll pretty much be the same with some more color up there. But I am looking to see if you would be willing to spend $287.73 to pay for that on that sign. And I don't know if it can come out of the tourism. You guys would have to, it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, I don't think it can come to this board.
Okay. Well, that's my ignorance, so I'm just.
Well, that's,
okay.
we're trying to err on the side of caution.
Yeah,
But there might be another place within tourism budget
okay,
that could be
Okay.
done.
In the city's allocation for tourism expenses,
okay,
because this one has to promote tourism.
Right.
And that
That-
particular sign, they're
I don't
already
think
here,
that,
they're
they're
going to
already
see
here,
it. Yeah.
so, okay. Because that's what I was kind of thinking, so, so
Yeah.
now, so I go to you then?
Yeah, so we'll just talk about it and we'll find where you would like to put it in that budget, because that budget is already,
That's the problem.
That's okay.
That's what
that's okay. It's not like an earth-shattering amount.
Well, it's not, but it's, I think it's, we want to do it nice, we want to, and that'll pop.
It already looks so much
You
nicer.
stand
than
there
it
with
does.
a boot and
Might
It looks
have to
really
do that.
nice.
boot and butts.
I'm not worried about coming up with the $287, but I just want to see where I can do it. I'll talk to you more about that.
Okay.
Any other comments or anything, Mayor?
No?
Okay, anything else?
Well, I just brought some, I know you've heard me talk about these before, but.
Guys, I got to cut out.
Okay.
Keep up the good work. Thank you all so much. Time and dedication.
The state of Missouri, 2 times a year, does a spring, summer vacation guide and a fall, winter vacation guide. And these are inserted in every newspaper imaginable across the Midwest. And so, for instance, this is something that in the past, we used to just do this one time a year, and then I tried to work it into the budget, the main tourism budget, twice a year. It isn't paid for out of this committee, but I just brought these tonight in case anybody wants to look at them, just because you've heard me talking about them before. And I know your guys aren't really doing a lot of like co-op advertising anymore, but if you ever wanted to get back into it, I think at one time that Microtel did participate in these programs, so just wanted to bring that in case.
And you are already in both of these, like, because it's twice a year?
Yeah, yeah. So we try to do a little display ad when we can afford it, and we have our brochure listed in there, and because of that, we get leads. And so we'll send out the rack card to any of those leads, or the postcard to any of those leads. So,
Is there an ad of ours in this one?
yes. Of course, I bring the ones that don't have, but I have sticky notes all over them back at my office.
Here's this one and this one.
Yep, there's, which one is
So it's
this?
trying to,
Oh.
stand out in the
Yeah.
swamp kind of a thing here. with
Right.
these. There's a lot, every community in the state, puts a
Okay.
little bit of something in there. And so
Okay, it's our brochure. Okay, that's what you were saying.
They
That was
did a big
another-
ad.
Oh, yeah.
That's another one of my questions
Oh,
about
their
the brochures.
budget
How are
is-
we all doing on
Yeah.
them, or do
Well,
we?
it's time to reprint those,
That's
so
what I
I'm trying,
thought.
I mean, it's time to redesign it, so I'm trying not to reprint it if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
So we have a committee that's meeting about that. The same way with the rack cards. We're talking about putting a new photo on the front of those, and so,
And that will come in front of us when we run out of the 6,000 somewhere during this contract. So we're basically, we haven't done a big contract, we're just extending the distribution for the printing that we've already paid for.
Right. Mhm.
And then, when that printing is done, we will have an option of renewing it, and at that time, we'll have to reprint. We should, by that time, they'll have the big brochure reprinted, and we'll be able to kind of piggyback on some of the artwork they're developing for that.
it's a lot to do over the winter.
Yes, I know.
This will keep you
We're all so
warm.
busy.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other business? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I don't think we have to do that anymore.
I mentioned
If
to
there's no other
adjourn the
business,
meeting.
we are adjourned.
Sabrina, would you
Thank
like?
you.